Hello, hello, I'm Tracy Pierce. Thanks for joining me for this Live with the Animals video series. So this series started back in March of 2020 and was really born out of what was happening here in the United States during that time. The coronavirus was starting to make itself well known. Shutdown, lockdowns, shelter in place, different kinds of orders were starting to go into effect. And I became really curious what the animals thought about this whole situation. And they really encouraged me to start making this live streaming video series. And people can ask questions. And, I never expected it would continue to go on this long. Here we are at the end of October 2020, and still lots of animals showing up who want to share their wisdom with us. So our little friend who is going to share wisdom with us today is our little chipmunk friend here. So this is a chipmunk that I saw in Rocky Mountain National Park a little over a month ago. And if you've been paying attention to the news at all during this time, what's been happening out here in Colorado is we've just had massive wildfires, and some have even encroached into Rocky Mountain National Park. And I was checking out the map of the fires, and the fire did come so far quite close to where I took this picture of where this chipmunk is. So I'm really curious to get its wisdom, or it can share with us what's happening in its area now. Okay, so if you're joining me live on Facebook and you have a question for this little chipmunk friend, feel free to type that into the comments. And if you're joining me on Zoom, you can type that into the chat box. So I'm just going to go ahead and get quiet and start tuning into this chipmunk and see what it would like to share with us today. So what it's first showing me is its kind of scurrying action. If you've seen a chipmunk before, sometimes they're so fast, they'll just run off, showing me that. Showing me there is quite a bit of chaos and confusion almost of what's happening right now. So this is what you're showing me is where you live right now. Is that correct? Yes. It is showing me like being able to see the smoke that was coming. All the animals here in our little grove we're very on alert. So yeah, it's even showing itself like it moving. I mean, it seems like northward, what it's showing me moving along this creek where I saw it. There's been a lot of animals moving, is what it says. It's saying, the scary thing about fires is we don't know which direction necessarily to move. It's not always, and that's why so many wildlife die during the fire, it says, is because the way the fire can jump, it's not always clear to the little critters which way to go. It's reminding me, so I live in the country, and sometimes when we come up the driveway, there's just a ton of rabbits that live around us, and they'll kind of get caught in the headlights and like run the exact direction that is the absolute wrong direction to avoid getting hit, like they'll run right in front of the car or run towards the car. And what this chipmunk is showing me is like when confusion comes, when it's an emergency, when our nervous systems get activated, it's not always clear which way to go. And it's more of the flight activation just takes over and you go. It doesn't matter which direction. So are you still seeing the smoke where you are, or? So it's showing the blanket of snow. We've gotten a lot of snow here in the last few days, and it's showing the blanket of snow over the area, kind of creating this stillness and silence a bit. Yeah, the chipmunk saying this has created a lot of struggle for me, because like where I had hidden my food stashes, I'm now far away or further away. And it kind of creates a bit of a free for all. It's showing like everything's kind of up for grabs. If another critter would come into and find my stores of food, it would be up for grabs. They could take it. Like is that kind of the way it works even when there isn't a fire? I mean, if somebody finds your food stash, then they're probably going to just eat it, right? So what it's showing me, it's almost like when they're in their established ecosystems, there's a sense of each critter or each animal that is a part of that ecosystem kind of having its own place. So this little chipmunk is saying, yeah, sometimes the birds actually come and steal our food a lot more often than other squirrels or other chipmunks, because the birds are more sneaky, is what the chipmunk says. But he's saying like there's a level of kind of understanding amongst the animals that we're each kind of supplying and saving up for our own winter or that. And there's a certain level of respect that we have for each other. But when things like this happen, when our ecosystem, when our whole system gets kind of upturned, like what's happened with the fire, it becomes a much more, what's the word? Oh, gosh, I can't, like I can see it. Natural selection, where there's so much competition, the competition becomes exacerbated, is what the squirrel is saying. And there's also so many animals that lost all their stores and lost their homes from where the fire did come, that it puts extra pressure on these areas that weren't burned. You're saying the timing is really not great for their animals, their ecological systems, because we were just going into winter, and to get displaced and to have to try to create a new home just before winter does create a lot of stress. The conditions are not the same. It may be harder to dig or something, like with the land or the earth being more frozen or cold. It just makes it more difficult. Is there anything else that you want us to know about you or this situation? Like, I don't know what we can do to help. We'll keep supporting the firefighters, as part of what this little chipmunk is saying. There is a sense too of, it's showing how even though this destruction was created, it is part of the natural cycle, like this natural way of being, cycle of life kind of thing. So the chipmunk is showing, yes, I feel all this panic, all this fight or flight kind of energy in my nervous system now. It's been really, really prevalent the last several days, and it's been challenging. Is there more you want us to know, or if this is a part of like a longer kind of cycle? It's showing like an earthly cycle, so it's different from a life cycle or like a mammal life cycle. It's saying, as much as we don't like it, destruction is part of that cycle. It's a part of every life cycle, it's showing. So it's even showing it's almost like the burning, it's creating something, isn't it? Yes, again, it's showing this earth cycle of like the earth refertilizing itself or creating space. I don't know, it's drawing some interesting points here for me. I'm not sure how to connect it for the audience. I used to do a lot of like professional organizing, clutter clearing with people. And, you know, part of that cycle also is like a destruction, or it's not exactly destruction, it's more like deconstruction, taking things apart and getting rid of things. So there is this sort of pulling apart kind of thing happening in a cycle. Is there more you want to tell us about that, or? So the chipmunk is saying, as difficult as this situation is for me personally, like I'm not taking it personally, like Mother Nature isn't taking this out on me, or I don't hold it against the fire, or perhaps that, you know, we don't know, we haven't been told yet what started these fires, but if it was a reckless human kind of thing, the chipmunk's saying, I don't hold that against any particular subset or Mother Nature or any of that. It is part of this ongoing upheaval, and it's like reconfiguration energetically, and then things move along in a way for a certain amount of time, and then this destruction comes again and things become energetically rearranged, and then there's this new cycle. It's showing it as a very natural thing, even though it may be quite uncomfortable. Okay, I see a question coming through here. So she's asking, are animals usually able to outrun fires, or do many perish in these fires? Do they know the fires are coming? So we addressed this a little bit at the beginning. Maybe you weren't here when we were talking about this. What he's showing me is sometimes we're aware the fires are coming. So what he's showing me too is once I was personally, Tracy, when I was aware that the fires were coming, I was like sending telepathically messages, just trying to send a warning signal to all the animals in the park. And this little chipmunk is saying, like, some of us catch that. And so some of us know. It's not like all of us know or all of us don't. There is a sense of when things start to happen. So he's showing this energetic ripple that comes through. It's almost like energetic ripple flowing through the telepathic field of all the animals in the area. And it's almost like an earthquake. It's showing this ripple, this vibrating that comes through. And then it's showing it almost like a warning signal, like this town I used to live in had a tornado siren. It's showing it's kind of similar to that. And most of the animals can catch it and move. But the chipmunk is reiterating that sometimes we just don't know which direction is the safest to move. And so that's how we kind of get caught in, you know, we're caught in a flight kind of energy, and we're just running. We may be running exactly the wrong direction. So it's, yeah, so it's showing there have been plenty of animals that have perished in this fire. Because that when that panic comes, it is almost like, yeah, just confusion, like not like there's no clear highway for them necessarily that leads the way out, or they don't necessarily know which way to go. And the chipmunk's saying that's part of what causes so many problems. So I've got another question for you, little chipmunk friend. Do you think it's the earth cleansing itself? Yes, I feel like that, you know, fire is one of the cleansing elements for sure. Fire itself can be very cleansing. It can also be extremely destructive. The two aren't necessarily separate from each other, is what he's saying. Sometimes the earth does have these fires that start itself. He's saying it's like a delicate dance. So sometimes fires that happen are about the earth cleansing itself, and sometimes it is just about negligence or human error kind of thing is what he's saying. Ultimately, fires do end up being cleansing one way or another, whether people want them to be or not. So he's showing there were lots and lots of homes that were lost in these fires here in Colorado, probably California and around the world too. Like, there's been so much fire, but so it's showing me like homes being burned to the ground, and showing how, and I guess like me, Tracy, personally, I have lost everything I owned in a fire when I was in my 20s. So I do know what it's like to go through this. But it's showing that even though people may not view it as such, it can be very traumatic, of course, to lose everything that you own in a fire, that there is a cleansing process that happens from that. It's showing me, it's reminding me, there was a part of me after the fire when I lost everything that felt actually a bit more free. It was like, oh, I wasn't carrying the energetic weight of all the physical stuff anymore. There was no physical stuff left. So it's showing even in these instances where maybe the fire was caused by human negligence, that there can be a cleansing effect from that as well. Okay. All right, I'm looking to see if we have any more questions. Any at this moment. All right, little chipmunk friend, is there more that you want to share with us about the fires or yourself or your chipmunk friend species? So it's showing me how fast, you know how little chipmunks seem to run very fast. They can, but it's also showing me like big elk and moose and all these different animals running at different paces, really. It's just showing it almost like a wave of, it feels like panic to me that kind of moves through the forest, it feels like. So what the chipmunk is showing me now too is all the trees that were around this area where I took this picture. There's a lot of pine trees, and we've had a lot of trouble here in Colorado with the pine beetle blight. So one of the reasons I think that Rocky Mountain National Park, this area burned so much, was because there was so much dead wood. There was so much fuel to burn. And what the chipmunk is showing me is almost like these sounds coming out of the trees. It's like an alert system is what the chipmunk is saying. This isn't just about the animals. It's showing me some of like pictures from some of the Lord of the Rings movies where the forest is moving, the trees are moving, and they really come alive. The Ents, I believe they're called. It's showing me how the trees in the forest are very much alive, and they are part of this telepathic signal that comes out. And yeah, it's almost showing too, like it's not it's a very sad sound. It's not quite as screaming, but it's like the sound of those trees dying as they are being eaten by those beetles. There's kind of a really sad sound that happens, and the chipmunk is saying, we've been trying to keep our spirits up even though there are so many of our trees dying around us. But we receive a lot of messages from the trees as well. And definitely when this fire came up, that was part of what happened as well. Okay, we've got another question for you. Little chipmunk friend, do you have any children? And why does every living being have telepathy? So this chipmunk is showing me itself as just being born earlier this spring. Um, I have not been old enough to have my own babies yet. I plan it will be next year. This chipmunk is showing itself as female right now and showing that it hopes to make it through the winter to have babies next year. But it did very much enjoy growing up in Rocky Mountain National Park this year. So why does every living being have telepathy? It is like a warning system, if you will. It's more than just warning, though it is, um, it's really a communication system, and we all need communication. So it's showing me some different, um, so as humans, we've become really reliant on words and speaking like the vocal part, but it's showing me some just flashes of like TV shows that I've seen where people, for one reason or another, couldn't speak. You know, if they had some kind of brain damage or damage to their vocal cords or something like this, and how we as humans always try to teach other humans ways of communicating with us so that we can take care of each other. And essentially that's what telepathy is. It is a form of communication, and it's a form of communication we used to understand very clearly. But it shows like our vision just getting really narrow as we have been coming down the evolutionary track. And we become too dependent on our vocal cords. And so it keeps showing me like sign language as well, or replacements for vocal cords as means of communication. It's almost like we've started to disregard telepathic communication as less valid somehow than vocal communication, but that's why it's there. It is there so that we can take care of each other. And so it's showing telepathy almost like a global communication network. It's showing like various satellites around this Earth kind of thing, creating a bubble of communication, saying essentially that's what the human race is trying to do with 5G and whatever satellite communications, those bigger kind of things, is they're trying to reestablish telepathic communication, but in a hardwired way that the current human brain understands. Whew, wow, that's interesting. Okay. Okay, so let's do one more question for you, little chipmunk friend. Is the fire going to help with this blight of the beetle kill for the trees? I'm not really sure about that. It feels like what the chipmunk is saying is the fire didn't kill all the beetles. So these beetles still exist. They're still spreading. They're still doing their thing that kills the trees. I do feel like this burn that has happened can help reestablish a healthier kind of forest ecosystem. Yeah, so it's showing me these views of when I was in Rocky Mountain National Park. I was really struck by, it seemed at least 25%, if not more, um, of these trees were dead. And it's showing how it is almost like consuming all that dead matter. Um, the chipmunk says, I really hope this encourages this new kind of growth and vibrancy. It feels possible, is what it's saying. Well, thank you so much, little chipmunk friend, for sharing your wisdom with us. And I'm glad that you made it through the fire. And I really hope that you can reestablish yourself in a way that works for you, and that you'll have those babies next spring. So thank you, little chipmunk friend, for joining us. Thanks for all our live viewers and anyone watching this later. It's so much fun to talk to the animals and listen to their wisdom. So if you've missed any of these videos, you can check out some of the past ones on my YouTube channel. Most of them are recorded there. All right, so I plan to keep doing these as long as the animals keep showing up. So hopefully we'll have more wisdom to share with you. So I hope you'll join us again, and until next time, take care and be well.